Today we have lots of NHL news and rumors to take a look at. In the rumor section today we're talking about teams like the Maple Leafs, the Habs, the Oilers, as well as the future of Sidney Crosby. When will we possibly get a contract extension with the Penguins? Plus we have some updates as well on Patrick Laine and his trade status, plus some updates on the Columbus Blue Jackets coaching staff and a few other signings around the NHL, including the Toronto Maple Leafs signing their first round pick from the 2024 draft. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about today. We have some signings, some updates on the coaching staff in Columbus, as well as some other items around the league and some trade talk as well in the future of Sidney Crosby once again. So first up, the Maple Leafs have signed their 2024 first-round pick, Ben Danford. Of course, he plays for the OHL's Oshawa Generals, taken 31st overall, gets his 3-year ELC, right shot defenseman. Obviously grew up in Ontario, grew up a big Leafs fan. It's kind of a dream come true for him to be taken by the Leafs here in the first round. So obviously, a player like, Easton Cowan last year that some people thought might have been a little bit of a stretch, that maybe he was taken a little bit early, but with teams like Toronto and they don't have a ton of picks, if there's a player they really like and really think will be a great fit, then they have to sometimes gonna go out on a limb and take them a little bit earlier because they don't have as many options of when they can draft players. Obviously, Cowan so far, I know when he raised a lot of eyebrows when he was picked last year, and he looks really, really solid right now. So the same might be able to be said for Danford as well. Not to say that he's not a good player or anything, but I know some thought he maybe should have been, probably a second-round pick instead of a first-round pick. But he looks like he's has some potential, and the Leafs obviously quite fond of him. Gets him his 3-year ELC. We also got veteran defenseman Brad Hunt. He's signed now as well, but he's getting an AHL-only deal. Of course, last year he spent majority of the season in the Avalanche organization playing for the AHL's Colorado Eagles. Now he moves on a 1-year deal to play with the American Hockey League's Hershey Bears. So obviously the Hershey Bears organization has been extremely successful. Obviously had a ton of regular season and playoff success the last number of years. So obviously he'll play a role there for them as one of the veterans trying to continue that level of success. And another signing is a former NHL player who's actually up on charges right now, Michael McLeod, former New Jersey Devil. Of course, he's one of 5 former NHL players now that are awaiting trial in a sexual assault case from the 2018 World Junior case that happened in London, Ontario back in 2018. Obviously, none of these guys are current NHLers anymore because they all had contracts that expired. They're all were restricted free agents. They didn't get qualifying offers, so they're all UFAs right now, and we've seen the case of some of them. I believe like Dylan Dubé was getting an opportunity to play in the KHL. There was some talk about Carter Hart. I'm not sure if Carter Hart's contract was officially signed. I can't remember, but I know he was looking to go over there too. And same with McLeod, and I believe Alex Formanton still has a contract in the I'm not sure what European league he was playing. I think he was in the Swiss league last year. So obviously these guys are getting opportunities. I know some people are not crazy about it, but the fact of the matter is, if these other leagues want to employ them while they're going through this process, unfortunately there's not much we can do about it, and until they're proven guilty in a court of law, then they're not yet guilty. It's just not innocent until proven guilty, right? So as much as everything looks bad based on everything we've learned through the investigation and from what we've heard about what will be presented for evidence, things don't look good, but until they go through the process, we just don't know. It's just that simple. So he gets to play there on a 1-year deal. The team put out a statement essentially talking about him as a player, and they really think of him being a star player in the KHL. They see him being one of the most recognizable names, really one of the top 2A players. They said they are aware of the legal issues, but they said that he claims that he's innocent and has not admitted any guilt, and that's all they're going to say about that for right now. Like I said, obviously if things go the player's way in the trial and they're found innocent, they'll be able to continue their careers. Even if NHL teams don't want to take them back or don't want to give them that opportunity again, European leagues and KHL league probably will, and it's just that simple. But it's, no matter what we all think about it, they do have the right for the time being to continue earning a living, and they'll have their day in court. And if they are found guilty, then they'll likely end up doing time in jail, and hopefully justice will be served for the victim. But obviously most of these guys getting opportunities, even with this major situation kind of hanging over their heads here. So we'll see how that goes. We won't have any updates on that probably for a little bit. I believe later this month, in the month of August, though, we are likely to get the trial date. I do believe that the next time they convene, I can't remember the date, but I know it's sometime in August. I think it's around the middle of the month sometime, that we could get the trial date. So we'll actually know when things will get started, and the whole process will likely take, I believe, probably looking at a couple of months from start to finish before we have a verdict. So we'll await further updates there. Updates out of Columbus. I know Aaron Portzline, the beat writer for the Jackets and the Athletic, talking about the coaching staff. Of course, they hired Dean Evison. This was a late addition, of course, into the offseason because of the late GM change with Don Waddell taking over and making some changes. So right now, they're not sure what's happening with the assistant coaches. Last season, they had Jared Boll, Mark Recchi, and Steve McCarthy all with the organization as assistant coaches, of course, with Pascal Vincent. And right now, it looks like Jared Boll is going to be staying. Not clear yet on Recchi or McCarthy's status. Usually, when a new coach is brought in like that, they usually let them bring in at least one of their own assistants. So I would suspect that one of those guys probably won't be back. Exactly who or what role the new person might have, or if Evison has somebody he wants to bring in, don't really know that information just yet. So we'll have to wait and see how things play out. And of course, the big storyline out of Columbus right now is waiting to see what happens with Patrik Laine. Now, Don Waddell did make some further comments to the Brian Hedger, the Columbus Dispatch, to kind of give us a sense of where things are at. Depending on who you listen to, some think that this deal is close. We've heard a lot about, mostly 3 teams, but there's probably 4 or 5 that have been mentioned to different lengths over the past number of weeks since the information leaked that Laine wanted a trade and that they were very open to accommodating that. So obviously kind of get to a point where it's, pretty likely it's going to happen, just a matter of when and where. But right now it doesn't seem like there's really any big rush. According to Don Waddell, he said that there's really only been one team that seems to be serious in having those conversations. Now, Don Waddell might also get to remember, he's trying to get himself a good deal. He's trying to move this player who has a hefty contract and hasn't had a ton of success, has dealt with a lot of adversity, a lot of, on and off the ice. So, it's a distressed asset. So he's trying to figure out how to accommodate what the player wants without getting, anything that's not too, against the team here. Like, obviously you want to make sure you get a good deal for the team and make the team better if you can in any of those situations. Well, it's going to be difficult with the Laine contract. Getting cap space back would be ideal. We know they're not crazy about salary retention, but like he said, one team, but he could be kind of just playing the media a little bit just to kind of drum up interest. But he did make a good point, saying like we're kind of at the point now where we're kind of in the, but people kind of some say it's the dog days of summer. Like we're further into the deeper part of the off season now, where a lot of teams are kind of scaling back and how much they're really working the phones, and not everybody is super serious about this right now. So that it could drag on for a while doesn't mean it won't happen. I mean, I think that the team is going to want to try to move Laine before the season starts. But when he says it could drag on, maybe it takes closer to around the time of training camp starting. Like I said, there's no pressure points right now. August, depending on the team, some teams have all their internal business pretty well done. So they're maybe kind of, at the cottage, taking some vacation time, sitting back. Not that they can't pick up the phone and make something happen if it's, really worthwhile, but not like they're, actively pounding the phones. There are some teams, though, that still have a decent amount of business to do. But there's a lot that don't. And it's kind of, the teams are at all kind of different spots right now. So it can be challenging to get things done, which is why now there's more speculation than there is actual activity, which is not shocking since the calendar flipped over here to August. Even the last second half of July, lots of speculation. not a lot of activity. That's not unusual. If there's a major flurry at the end of June into the first half of July, things typically do slow down. But of course, here we are, right? So Waddell kind of, I think, using the media to kind of drum up more interest. But we've heard a lot about 3 teams, especially. Carolina has been mentioned a lot, and Waddell also made comments recently that talking when kind of giving Eric Tulsky a vote of confidence in the fact that he became the new GM after he left, and kind of endorsing that move. That we don't know if he was serious, but he very well could have been, saying that the 2 teams were trying to make a trade. So how do we know that wasn't serious and Laine's not the player? Because we've heard lots about them being in the mix. We've heard lots about Montreal being in the mix, but at the same time, we don't have any anything further than that, right? So, we've heard bits and pieces about other teams. We've heard a little bit about Winnipeg, could have returned to the Jets happen. We've heard a bit about New York and the Rangers. There's been a few other teams. The Ducks have been in another team, and according to Waddell, only one team is serious, and if he's not really liking their offer, or he wants to get obviously more teams involved so that he can get a more competitive situation here and get a better deal. So he's not in any hurry. So I would think that this is quite possible that unless a team ups the ante here, that the Laine situation, as much as a lot of people want to believe it's imminent, that probably really isn't, and it could drag on for a while. So there's probably going to be lots of speculation over the next few weeks until something actually does transpire here. Now, of course, other news as well. Today as well, we got word that of course, we know in Canada for the rights holders, Rogers, for the National Hockey League package, Sportsnet has not really done the greatest job with it, in my opinion. We know that the Rogers has lost money on this deal, and that they sold the Monday night rights right now. So Monday Night Hockey is now in the fall going to be on Amazon Prime. We've talked about that earlier back. I can't remember when it was probably about a month or 2 ago when that was confirmed. Now the rumor is that the play-by-play person for those games is going to be John Forslund. So no big surprise that it's not anybody from Sportsnet. Obviously, Forslund does a great job on a national broadcast in the U.S., very well respected. So I think that's going to be a good thing for sure. Amazon Prime in Canada will have the Monday night game. So like I said before, if you don't have it, you might want to consider getting it. I know people complain about the cost of streaming and cable packages and all the different ways to get all your games and all that, but it is the way things are trending. So don't be surprised over time that different streaming services get very much involved with the rights holder package as it becomes available for bidding here in the next couple of years. So we'll see. But Forslund's rumored to be the play-by-play guy. In Edmonton, I know Oilers, Bob Stauffer was talking and kind of encouraging fans not to be super anxious or not to be concerned about the fact that Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg still remain unsigned to this day. Obviously, we know the Oilers do not have the cap space by all means. Looking at their Puckpedia page, that they are theoretically over the cap a bit. I think they can make some adjustments by paper transactions to kind of get that to be compliant, though. But there's really no room to sign Broberg and Holloway. So again, like he says, they're going to have to make a cost-cutting move. It's hard to say when that could be. It said there'll be more pressure points closer to the beginning of the season. We know, when Leon Draisaitl contract extension is also a very big priority, and clearly, Stan Bowman, the new GM, hasn't been on the job very long. He already said when they did their press conference introducing Bowman that he's going to probably take the first week and just kind of learn, get to know everybody in the organization, just kind of learn where everything was at. It's kind of give them a chance to kind of get settled in and get up to speed and everything, right? And then after that, it would be when you would start to see more things taking place. So really, I know there was talks even a week ago that Draisaitl's contract extension might be getting close, and it's really, I don't think that's the case. I mean, are they talking? Sure. I don't know that they're fully negotiating. It's probably very, just cordial exchanges at this point. Now, we could be starting to get to the point now that those formal negotiations are more likely to kind of be getting to the early stages because, he's had long enough on the job now that he should be kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of what needs to be done. So there's that's big on his to-do list. And then, of course, probably making a cost-cutting trade of some sort. It's believed it's going to be either Kulak or Ceci. Again, a defenseman likely has to go. Broberg likely gets their spot. He proved in the playoffs that he deserves it. I know between what Stauffer has said, and I've seen Jim Matheson say the same thing, they feel that both players are probably going to sign short bridge deals, either 1 or 2 years, and that they might be able to get both players signed for around maximum $2.5 million, maybe a little bit less. So we'll see. The Oilers definitely have to do something, but there's no pressure point to get it done. Yeah, it wouldn't be shocking if the Draisaitl contract extension actually happened first, because he's such a big part of that team that it's almost a bigger priority for them. Of course, we know the Leafs as well still have the trade request from Nick Robertson. We have not heard anything to the contrary that it's being rescinded, even though there does appear to be an opportunity for him with the lineup the way it is. I've seen some suggestions that maybe he should be traded to a team like in his home state of California, like the Anaheim Ducks, where he might fit in well with their young core. Obviously, they got a good mix of young, up-and-coming top players, and then they got some good veterans to insulate them as well. I've seen one suggestion that maybe they'd have a player there, whether it be some defensive depth that they could get in return, or maybe a different type of forward. I know I've seen like Urho Vakanainen's name mentioned. I don't think the Ducks are going to move any of their younger, really high graded prospect D, like whether it be Zellweger, Mitnikov, like those guys aren't going anywhere. Not for this type of trade, at least. And really, given the Leafs cap situation, they can't take anything back that's got too much value on it. A guy like Vakanainen might be an option, or I've heard Brett Least, and this is more just fans talking. This is not rumor that they're having these conversations, but obviously we know Robertson does. It's been a long reported that he wants a trade, and there's been some chatter over where he could go, and this is more than anything just fans talking on social media suggesting return to California. I've seen some say maybe he should join his brother in Dallas too, but again, we don't really have any information to suggest that there's interest to make that happen. But obviously, Robertson situation is still something that needs to be looked upon here for the Maple Leafs. I don't think, like I said before, that they really have any strong desire to go out there and shop him and be pounding down other teams' doors to try to accommodate a trade request. I think if something happens that they're comfortable with, they'll do it, but they're not going to just be like, okay, we got to get this done. Let's get him out of here type of thing. So we'll see where that goes. But could he go to California? I mean, the Ducks and Sharks are rebuilding. Makes sense that could be the case. And the Ducks do have some players there where, that might be good returns for Toronto if they do want to make that type of move. I mean, especially if the Ducks do win, because there's lots of speculation around Anaheim too. Maybe they could be a player for Laine. There's some talk about would they move Frank Vatrano. There's definitely interest there. We know John Gibson is a name that's been out there, but his contract continues to prove to be a problem, which is why that hasn't happened. So we'll see where things go. But Robertson to one of those teams seems to be what fans are talking about the most. But again, I'm not sure the Leafs are in any kind of hurry to push that ahead. Sidney Crosby, we've talked in recent days about his future, what's holding things up. There's a lot of belief out there that maybe he'll end up getting his contract extension announced on his birthday, which is coming up. We know he's super superstitious and loves the 8-7. August 7th is his birthday, which is why he wears 87, which is his contract that has just expired was 8.7 for all those years. Like, he finds ways to incorporate this into his hockey life. He has forever. So, could the announcement of an extension on 8-7 be what we see? I mean, in early July, even before free agency began, before he was even eligible, there was lots of talk amongst connected NHL insiders saying that they believe this would be an easy thing to get done and that it should be announced either July 1st or maybe a few days later, and it never has been. It's been a solid probably month now that we're into free agency and nothing's come to be, and there hasn't been any significant updates. I mean, when I've seen Pittsburgh writers like Rob Rossi and Josh Yowie kind of talk about this, it's been fairly quiet. But Rob Rossi did hint at in his recent article that, the superstition of Crosby, maybe it'll be a birthday announcement. So we will see. I mean, we know it's rumored to be in the $10 million range. Wouldn't be surprised if he found a way to get the 8-7 in there. Maybe it's 10.87 or maybe it's 9.87. I don't know. Or maybe it's, 10.087. Like, hard to say exactly, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's incorporated into the number in some capacity. But that's the latest belief out there. Like I said, we don't have any intel to suggest that Sid is on the move. But that's, like I've said in the last time we talked about it a few days ago, was that ultimately, until he signs, there's bound to be some speculation because people are going to wonder what's going on, what's holding things up. And at this point with Crosby, if his birthday comes and goes and we don't get an extension, it's probably going to fuel things even more. But at the end of the day, until we get some kind of concrete data or communication from a connected reporter saying that, he's maybe not staying, he's not signing or something, then we're going to know that that's probably not the case. Now, in Montreal, we know that they were rumored to be going after a top player. We know that there's supposedly a player in the Laine sweepstakes. I've seen a lot of comments on recent videos talking about Laine from Habs fans that are dead set against it. They don't want that type of trade. And I've seen another article that was interesting as well. This was more from a free agent rumor perspective than it was a trade talk. But obviously, TVA Sports was talking about the fact that we didn't see the Habs make that big splash this offseason like we thought they would. We know Kent Hughes was open to it, talked about it very openly to the media, that if he can find a big trade around the draft to add another top young player, he'd love to do it. It never came to be. Like I said as well, I honestly think the fact that they get to draft Ivan Demidov kind of toned things down a bit, and really they've been pretty quiet outside of getting their guy at the draft. They haven't done a whole lot. The team is very similar to what it was last year. And clearly they didn't get that trade or that big free agent signing that a lot of people were expecting. So this article kind of goes over the fact of, well, is next year going to be any different? Maybe next year we see the big move and they'd be well positioned between cap space, and obviously if they needed to make a trade ahead of time, because some of these guys, if they hit UFA status, maybe you need to trade for them ahead of time to get their signing right. So you have lots of capital that way with assets and prospects and draft capital and all that kind of stuff. They're still well positioned to make that move. And if they can show improvements this year and that they're trending towards, being a playoff team in the near future, maybe they'd have a better shot at landing one of these guys. But it covers a lot of the top names, and not the absolute top names. Like you don't see mentions of like Marner or Tavares or anything like that, but it mentions Taylor Hall. It mentions Claude Giroux. It mentions Nick Ehlers, Brock Besser, Brock Nelson. A couple of those guys I think we can probably rule out right away. I don't see Brock Nelson going to Montreal. I'm not sure there'd be any desire on the player's part. I don't know that he's really what they need. So I don't think that one makes sense. Claude Giroux, yes, he's down in Ottawa. To me, if he decides to leave Ottawa, it's only because that's home for him. He played the bulk of his career with the Flyers, went home to Ottawa. Yes, they haven't taken the step that he was hoping they would. He's got one more year. He said that he wasn't really thought much about it. He's just working on the upcoming season. Has not given anybody the indication that he plans to not want to keep playing there. But if the things don't go as well, to me, that's the only reason he would consider leaving is to chase a cup. And I don't see him going from Ottawa, who has been ahead of the Habs in the standings for the last number of years, to go to a team like Montreal, who's, at least on paper right now, is not further ahead. So to me, that doesn't make sense. Unless they showed this massive step forward this year, then why would he do that? To me, and really from the Habs perspective, is that really what they need? I don't think so. I mean, he's going to be 37 when the next contract starts. So Giroux and Nelson, to me, don't really make a lot of sense. I know if you look at Taylor Hall, good player, often injured. I don't know. To me, not really sure that makes sense either. Besser and Ehlers, on the other hand, they do make some degree of sense to be targets. Now, for me, to add another player of a veteran caliber, you have to move out of veteran caliber. So you're probably going to see guys like Armia won't be back this year. Like he'll be done. Maybe they find a way to move a guy like Josh Anderson, Christian Dvorak. So they could obviously, improve themselves with some stronger veterans like these guys. Nick Ehlers is a guy that could fit, get great speed, good offensive instincts, typically pretty good middle six player. So maybe, but Brock Besser has proven, especially what he showed last year, that he can be a really solid goal scorer. I'm not saying that Vancouver is not going to do everything they can to keep this guy. There are some that think that maybe they should consider a Boeser trade this year. Never mind getting to free agency, but do it this year while his value is as high as it was, because his value was super low for a few years. He breaks through and comes back last year. The team obviously has a much better season. Now considered one of the stronger teams in the Western Conference after, being really down the dumps a couple of years back. And now, Boeser's value is at an all-time high. Should they trade him? I've seen that argument this offseason. I mean, it's tough to do because then you got to replace those goals. How do you win that trade? It's not easy, right? Some teams are, ruthless that way and are not afraid to do it. But I don't know if I'm Vancouver that I want to really mess with that. So, I mean, unless he prices himself out and you don't think you can re-sign him, that's probably the only way you consider it. And clearly they're going to want to keep him for their own season anyways. I mean, not that they want to lose him as a UFA either, but, I don't really see a case where they make it a point to move him, right? Now, if he happens to hit free agency, if I'm Montreal, I would absolutely try. But again, if you're Brock Boeser and you've gone through some tough times in Vancouver, and then you finally had a couple of years where your team is much more competitive, you're getting into playoffs, you're having good success, does he want to leave? I don't think so. He's probably going to do whatever he can to make it work to stay. And if he does hit free agency, he's not going to want to take steps backwards. He's going to want to keep going. And I could see him most likely maybe going to the States. He's an American-born player. We know what he's been through with his losing his dad, maybe closer to family. Like, we don't know what his priorities are. I just don't know that Montreal is going to be a place that he's going to want to consider. But if I'm Ken Hughes, I'm absolutely reaching out and having those conversations. Same with Ehlers, but that's probably the best case scenario. But let me know in the comments. Do you agree with the sentiment of this article? Even though they didn't get the big move this year in 2024, is 2025 next offseason when we're going to see another big move from Ken Hughes? Are these the guys they should be targeting? And if so, let me know your thoughts on what kind of contract they should offer and what makes the most sense to you. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.